Mark, how are you doing this evening?
Good, how are you?
I am all right, thank you. So Andrew, right now we're at 6 members, right? We
Correct.
have a 7th seat vacant.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So we are all here.
Well, we have a 7th member, but it's,
A cat or a dog. Looks like we're up and streaming on YouTube. Stuart's all right now. I'll go ahead and give my little introduction. If that's okay.
Sure.
The format of this meeting consists of board members and applicants attending a live online Zoom meeting. Looks like we have 6 members here in attendance. For applicants, please only speak when the chair indicates it's time to do so. For example, he may ask if anyone is present to speak for an application. In addition, as usual, prior to addressing the board, please state your name, address, and affirm that you will tell the truth. The meeting is also streaming on City's YouTube channel right now. Looks like we have 4 people watching. For the public, viewers on YouTube have the ability to enter comments. If you enter in a comment on YouTube, please first indicate your name and address. Comments can be entered at any time, but will be relayed to the board when the chair indicates it's time to do so during the public hearing portion of an application. Any other comments submitted to me prior to tonight's meeting have also been forwarded to the board. Please also be aware that there's an approximate 15-second delay between the Zoom meeting and the live stream on YouTube. So that's all I have for now. And I'll pass it up to Stuart.
All right, thank you, Andrew. It's 7:31, so I will call the meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled July meeting of the Worcester Board of Building and Zoning Appeals. This is a volunteer board of Worcester citizens established to hear requests for variances, appeals, and similar applications as specified in the City of Worcester Planning and Zoning Code. Board members present this evening are Ken Suchan, Doug McMillan, Greg McIlvaine, Mark Reynolds, and Brad Gowans. My name is Stuart Fitzgibbon, and I am chair of this board. Because these hearings are a matter of legal record, the public portion of the meeting is recorded. Therefore, as Andrew just indicated, we ask that if and when you speak, please speak loudly and clearly. We also ask that prior to speaking, each speaker gives his or her name, address, and affirmation to tell the truth. Following the meeting, the appellant for each application will receive notification of the board's decision. The applications to be considered tonight are applications BZA 20-12, BZA 20-13, BZA 20-15, and BZA 20-16. So our first order of business is roll call. Ken,
Here.
Doug,
Here.
Greg,
Here.
Mark. Mark, you're on mute.
Here.
Thank you. Brad,
Here.
and I too am here. Our next order of business is approval of the June 4th meeting minutes. Are there any comments, corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Second.
Second by Ken. Thank you, Ken. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Okay, the minutes are approved. All right, our first application is 20-12, Clemens Helene requesting an area variance. Is there anyone here to speak for or speak on behalf of this application?
Dude, I don't know if there's an issue with attendance or anything. You can hear it now or table it, or you can kick it to the end of the agenda to see if they're able to attend at the end.
Okay, is there any preference on the part of the board to either push it to next month or leave it on until the end of the meeting?
I guess I'll make a motion to push it to the end of the meeting. There's a lot of interest in it. It seems like there maybe somebody might still be trying to get in on the hearing.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so motion by Greg to defer 20-12, second by Brad, to the end of the meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. All right, 20-12 is deferred to the end of the meeting. All right, next up is BZA 20-13, Louis Zybor requesting an area variance. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Yeah, I'm Louis Sabor. I'm here.
All right. Could you give us your address and your affirmation to tell the truth?
Yes, my address is 635 North Buckeye Street, Worcester, Ohio. And I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Yes, I'm trying to add a bedroom on the back of my house. And I had it all approved once. And I didn't realize there was a year date. I was going through Curry Lumber and then they closed up. And I've just had some health problems. So I was trying to get back to where I was doing good. And we want to just go with what was already approved once, hoping that it'll be approved again. I didn't realize that a year would go by that fast, and 2 or 3 went by.
Is this the exact same plan?
Yes. Only thing's changing is we're going to go with a metal roof instead of shingles because the house has got a metal roof on it now.
That's the only change to the request.
What's that, ma'am?
That's the only change to your request is that you're changing the roof material?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have a question or a comment. So I see in your application, you attached letters from neighbors that indicated they're essentially were approval or permission, if you put it, for the change. But I didn't
Yeah.
see any letters.
Oh, I've got letters from both neighbors. I'm sorry, I didn't get them downloaded onto that, but I've got them right
Okay.
here. And
Okay,
it's,
thank you.
Is your one setback only going to be 1 foot from the property line? Am I reading that first paragraph correctly?
Yes. Right now, if stood in between our two houses, you can actually touch your right hand and left hand in each house on both
Yeah.
sides of it.
All right.
Yes,
It's
an
very
extreme-
tight.
So there's kind of a pre-existing
extremely narrow
condition.
lot. Yes. I have a question. In the picture we're looking at, the drawing up on the screen, the front of the house almost gets to the same point. Is that right? It's very close to the lot line also, because the house
Yes,
sits a little bit.
yes, that front. Yeah, it's probably only 10 inches, maybe 8 inches. I mean, there's a marker there. It's not very far.
Okay. So that was essentially established when they built the house then.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, looking at the aerial overview picture, it almost looks like this house was an infill between two other houses.
Yeah, it's a pretty small lot.
To say the least. Are there any other questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none, I will open this up for public hearing and ask if there are any others in attendance who want to speak either for or against this application. Andrew, do we have anyone on YouTube?
As I said, there's a delay. Let's give it a minute or so. I haven't any comment on this particular application yet, though.
Okay.
Doesn't look like I'm getting any for this application.
All right. With no additional input, we will close the public portion of the hearing. Members of the board, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this variance as presented.
Okay,
And I'll
thank you,
second it.
Brad. And that's Doug seconding.
Yes.
All right. Voting in the affirmative for BZA 20-13. Brad,
I'm going to vote yes for this. I voted yes for it last time, and I still agree with it. I think it fits within the spirit and intent of the code, and even specifically on the checklist, the worksheet, letter F, given the unique circumstances of the lot. So for those reasons, I'll vote yes.
okay, thank you. Mark,
I'm also going to vote yes for some of the same reasons that Brad stated. I think because of the narrowness of the lot, the proposed variance is the best suitable use for it.
thank you, Mark. Greg,
I guess I'm a little hesitant just because it's so close, but given that the existing structures are already as close as they are, it's been approved previously, and the neighbors apparently approve of it, I'll vote yes also.
thank you. Doug,
I'm going to vote yes, as what else was stated. The narrowness of the lot really hampers anything else you could do. So I'm voting yes, and for all the other reasons mentioned.
okay, thank you, Doug. Ken,
I'm voting yes, for all the reasons that have already been stated.
I too will vote yes for all of the reasons that have previously been stated. It is a unique situation, and the addition is consistent with the current configuration, and we're not hearing any objections to the previous approval. So, Mr. Cyber, your application is approved.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have BZA 20-15. Roger Kobelarsek of the city with a parking lot request. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Yes, Roger Kobelarsek, 538 North Market Street. I affirm to tell the truth.
Thank you. Please
You're
proceed.
welcome. Okay, so I'm asking for two variances for this parking lot for this east end of town. One variance is for to allow the waste receptacle to be within the rear 5-foot rear setback. And the other one is for the no mid landscaping within the parking. Both of these variances so that I can optimize the number of spaces that we have. And I'd be free to answer any questions that anybody would have.
So to optimize the number of spaces, it's because it's a narrow lot that you can't get the center island in?
Correct. Well, I'd lose, I only have 38 spaces, and then I would lose 4 spaces, so that would give me 34. I've got islands at each end. I believe you guys have a drawing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we do.
Okay, yeah. So I've got the island, like on the south end, there's an island, in each island there, a little tree at the bottom of each one. There's 4 there, 2 at the top, and then a couple on the sides, on the east side.
Other questions from members of the board?
Just to clarify, the amount of internal landscaping is greater than that required, even though it's not in the exact spots that the code would call for. Is that correct?
I don't have that. I can't answer that. Andrew, can you help me with that?
Yeah, that is correct. The total interior landscaping exceeds the requirement, though it's not spaced out within the 100 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Any other questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none. I'm sorry, was somebody going to say something? All right, hearing no additional questions at this moment, we'll open the public portion of the application and ask if there's anyone else to speak for or against this application. So Andrew will give the delay for YouTube.
doesn't look like I'm getting any comments for this particular application.
All right, then we will close the public hearing portion. Any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval as presented.
Okay, thank you, Ken.
Second.
Is that Greg?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Greg. All right, voting in the affirmative on application BZA 20-15. Ken?
I am voting yes. I think that the specific dimensions of the lot preclude it from meeting exactly the terms of the code, but in essence, there is more landscaping being provided than required, and I think that's a plus for the city. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Greg?
I'll vote yes also for the reasons Ken cited, but also because it's a downtown parking area. Spaces at times are very limited. And I think we want to get all the spaces we can while still providing the landscaping.
Okay, so just to confirm, you're voting yes, your audio cut
Yes.
out a little bit. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
voting
you.
yes.
Okay, Mark?
I'm also voting yes for the same reasons stated below. I think it'll be a big improvement to the area. And because of the special nature of the lot, I think granting the variance will help lead to the maximum return of the property.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Brad?
I too am voting yes, and specifically referencing the review criteria. If we look at letter J, it speaks to a lot of the other lots in the downtown area have been given similar variances given to their size and their shape. And I think that denying this would deny the rights that we've given to others. So for that, I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you, Brad. Doug?
And I'm going to vote yes, based on what everybody has said, particularly the fact that the landscaping, although they didn't put some of the landscaping in, they exceeded it. And we need the parking downtown. I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I too will vote yes for the reasons cited by my colleagues. Parking is definitely needed downtown, and I applaud the city for coming up with a plan that exceeds requirements. So, Mr. Kobelarsek, your application is approved.
I thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next we have BZA 20-16, Barbara and Tom Yoder applying for variances with regard to chickens and a rooster. Is there anyone here to speak for this application?
Yes, my name is Barbara Yoder. I'm at 1352 East Wayne Avenue, and I affirm to tell the truth. And I'll just want to mention that the reason that we're masked is our neighbor is with us, and she wanted to come to the meeting, so to protect each other, we're just being careful.
Thank you. Very appropriate. Please go ahead and proceed.
Okay. So in 2018, when we moved just down the street, and with the larger lot, my daughter was hoping that we would be able to have chickens here. And before doing so, we approached our two adjacent neighbors, and they both gave us their blessing to proceed with chickens. We didn't want to be a nuisance. So we got the chickens, and we were assured that they were all females. And a couple of months later, one began to vocalize in a not very hen-like way. So we realized that one of them was a rooster. So we met with our neighbors again and asked if it would be a nuisance to them if we kept him. And they were fine with us keeping him, so we did. That was in 2018. And we've had no one approach us about the rooster in that time. In April 2020, we got a letter from Mr. Wilson that told us that having a rooster is actually a zoning violation, which we did not realize. Before we got chickens, we did look up in the city code, and we thought that this would be addressed under nuisance animals like, dogs or any other kind of animal. So that was the first time that we realized that we were not in compliance. So we've been in touch with Mr. Wilson and Mr. Dutton. This is brand new for us. We have never done anything like this, and I'm very nervous. So, so we are requesting that we be giving a zoning exemption to keep the rooster because it's our belief that the intent of the zoning regulation is a nuisance related issue. And so we're proposing that we use a method to reduce his vocalization that would keep it to about that of a noisy hen or a barking dog, certainly no worse. And just to that point, in one of our chicken references, when they talk about rooster noises, there are some decibel measurements that at 1 yard, a barking dog at 1 yard is 70 to 100 decibels. A lawnmower is about 100 decibels. And a rooster at that same distance, 1 yard, is around 50, it says 48 decibels. So just to put that in context, and from a noise perspective, from a volume perspective, we're proposing to reduce that vocalization level by installing what's called a no crow collar. And we provided a URL if you wanted to see a picture of that, but it's basically a Velcro strap that goes around his neck to keep him from being able to completely inflate his air sacs to push out the sound. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at the before and after videos that we provided, but the first one is his normal vocalization, and the second is him trying to vocalize with the no crow collar on. Let's see, after we got the notification from Mr. Wilson, we again reached out to our immediate neighbors and asked them if they were done living next to a rooster. And they said they were still fine living next to a rooster. So I guess I would say in summary, we were unaware that this was a zoning violation. We've tried to care for our chickens in a way that has taken into account the comfort of our neighbors. And we are striving to take measures to reduce the crowing vocalization so that it is not a nuisance. Having taken these measures and acting in good faith, we would request an approval of this variance.
I guess
Yeah.
a couple of questions. You haven't said anything about the second part of your request, which is a request for a variance allowing chicken wire.
Oh, okay, I should talk about both then? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. So for the fencing, when we set up the chicken coop, we set up chicken wire fencing to contain them. And the goal with that was to maintain the character of the lots where we are. The poles are, there's a picture there. The poles are black and the fencing goes across our land, across the backyard, and then vertically down the middle of the yard. And we wanted it to blend in and not be obtrusive or unsightly in any way. The lots where we are is completely wooded. Let me see what I want to say there. We thought it was the least visible fencing. It maintains the character of the area, which is heavily wooded. And it accomplishes that by just being hard to see. And our adjacent neighbors have stated that they have no objections, and that would be Kareem Miller and Dan and Pat Simpson. And none of that fencing is in the front yard. It's all the way in the back with big trees down the sides. Yeah, there's a more updated picture. Oh, you know, this picture is actually, we couldn't figure out how to take down a photo from, so there's another picture that's similar to that. This is actually before we even got chickens. And so you can see the white fence posts, and that it doesn't look like that anymore. I don't know if Andrew can show the other picture that came with it.
That's the only picture I have of the.
Oh, really?
Is this the picture you're looking for? So probably hard to see.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Andrew, this was in the supplemental
There we go.
package that you
There we
sent
go.
out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's what the chicken wire fence looks like in the backyard. There's some wooden fence posts, and then crossing the yard, there are some flat fence posts, and you can see the chickens in the picture there. And if you look at picture, is that the only picture we put in for this? Yeah. Okay, never mind. So if you look at picture number 18, you'll see the coop as it is today. There. So now it has a proper gate.
So questions from members of the board?
In the package that I have regarding your appeal, there's a petition from half a dozen neighbors to say no to the variance. Would you like to address that, please?
I would. Thank you for raising that. There are a couple of, well, there are 6 households and 5, right? 5 supported. We received, to our knowledge, there are 6 households that have expressed concerns about having a rooster in the neighborhood, and 5 families that have 5 households that have given support. I don't know what other phone calls, Andrew might have gotten. Those are just the ones that we're aware of. For each of these letters that I have from the packet, I've tried to address their objections. For the ones that are in this, there are 5 households that are, but 6 individuals that have signed to say that they did not want a rooster. I don't know what their objections are because there's nothing stated on this. And so I can only assume that they might be noise related or concern for potential noise, or often, I read that people are concerned about smell and other types of issues and things that were raised in the other. But for the petition, I don't know what their objections are, but I would love to speak to the other objections if there's time.
Thank you.
Well, I guess one of the objections is the rooster crowing at daybreak. So even with the collar, is the noise level at 5:30 or whatever daybreak is that still going to be considered a nuisance? I'm wondering if that's part of the issue.
Yeah, I didn't read in that particular letter. She didn't, did you want to see?
I'm Princess Yoder. I live at 1352 East Wayne Avenue, and I'm a firm to tell the truth. We are still working on adjusting the collar to get it to the correct tightness so that it's not too tight and not too loose. And we are hoping that by getting it to that tightness, the neighbors who are opposed to it will no longer be bothered by it, and only our immediate neighbors who support our rooster will be able to hear him.
It is a,
Other
it is
questions
a,
from members of the board?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. It is an ongoing effort to get it the right tightness. It's new for us, and so we are experimenting a little bit, but we do feel like we've made good progress. I don't know if you've had time to listen to the before and after videos that we provided, but those do show a very big difference.
Other questions from members of the board?
Yes, are all the trees that surround the coop, are they your trees or your neighbors?
Those trees are planted more or less on the property line. I'm not sure. Do you know? Those are your trees? Some are mine, some are yours. Oh, Corinne says that some are mine and some are hers.
All right, other questions? All right, hearing none from the board, I'll open the public hearing portion and ask if there are others who want to speak for or against this application.
We have a few comments here. I'll try to screen share.
Okay, and I think we have a neighbor there with the Yoders.
My name is Corinne Miller. I live at 1336 East Wayne Avenue, and I affirm to tell the truth.
Okay.
I have a couple of comments I'd like to make. I live directly beside the Yoders, and actually my driveway property kind of flows right into the property beside the Yoders. So I live very, very closely to the Yoders, and I think if anybody were to complain about the rooster or the chickens, it would be me. And my family and I have absolutely no problem with the rooster or the chickens or the fencing, because the fencing is done in such a way that it literally is not seen, because the foliage and the greenery and the trees literally hide the fence beside my driveway. And the only way it can be seen is if somebody were to drive into my driveway to look at, which somebody actually did, to see it. So it is really hidden very well in the shrubbery and the trees in the driveway. So you really can't see it unless you drive into the driveway to look at it, at least on my side of the property. So with things that are happening in the world today and the way things are, there are a lot of things that you can complain about. And I would think that the chicken and the rooster and the fencing are really not one of them that I would complain about the way things are. And with all the problems that are happening in the world today, the chickens for me kind of give the world a little bit of peace and a little bit of normalcy back into the world. And my family and I actually like the chickens, and they give some comfort to what's happening in the world today for us. So we enjoy them and we love them, and I would hate to see anything happen to them. And the property is fine. There's nothing happening there that would cause a problem, at least for us. And they're right beside us, you know, they're a part of everyday life for us. And to us, they're absolutely fine. So we see no problem with them whatsoever. And that's what I'd like to say about them.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay, Andrew, these are the comments that are from YouTube that you're
Yes, Mr.
showing on the screen.
Correct. Mr. Paulo has,
Oh, may I make one more comment, please? I'm sorry. The objections that we've noticed that have come in from properties that are way, way behind the Yoder's and clear to the north, actually. And there's a couple of streets in back of it. So I guess I'm having kind of a hard time understanding how they're hearing the roosters so clearly, because they're kind of way back in back of us. So I guess I'm having kind of a hard time understanding how they're hearing them so well, being so far in back of us. Okay, that's the other thing I wanted to say.
and yes, these are the comments I've received so far from Ms. Apollo, and then a few phone calls, which were not included in your packet, which I included there.
Okay. Do we need to read these into the record, or will they be typed in with the minutes?
They'll be included with the minutes and in the record for the file.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it from YouTube. Andrew?
I'll see if there's any further. More comment here from Mr. Paulo.
All right, so noted, nothing further?
No, nothing further.
Okay. At that point, then I will close the public portion of the hearing and ask if anybody on the board has any further questions. All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I would actually like to motion that we split this variance into two, so that we would vote separately, once for the rooster and once for the fencing.
All right, we have a motion from Brad to split the two requests. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, that was Doug.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. All right, the motion passes and we will vote on each issue separately. Do I have any further motions?
I would move that we have executive session if we can do that prior to voting.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion by Ken, a second by Brad for executive session. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, Andrew, if you could park us.
Let's see what we can do here.
All right, thank you.
You guys received an invitation for a breakout room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a minute here before you guys start talking, okay?
Should we click join?
Yeah, give me a minute before you start talking though, for a minute. Ken, were you invited to the,
Yes. Do I have to push join?
yeah. All right, the board has gone into executive session. They will discuss the application and then come out and typically render a decision.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're so welcome.
I think it matters a lot that you're here. It matters a lot that you're here.
Hmm. Doesn't mean that they're split the two. Split the two things up into two
There's
areas.
probably some members who feel okay about one, but not the other.
So otherwise, if they would vote no, then that would be for the fencing and the rooster. So by splitting them up, they can say yes to one, but not to the other.
Clemens?
Yes, it's Helga.
Okay, we got you in the meeting there. Currently, the board's in executive session. They're discussing another application.
Okay.
So they'll come back and likely make a decision on that application, and then yours will be next.
Wonderful. Thanks for your help.
It should be 5 minutes or so before they get
Okay,
back.
that's fine. Thank you.
Gotten everybody back.
Like Greg is not back yet. There it is.
All right, I think you have 6 of us back, Andrew.
Okay.
All right, are we back live on YouTube?
We never left, so yeah.
All right. Do I have a motion to return from executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, we are back in session. I will entertain a motion from the board on, we're going to take this in parts. So the first part regarding the rooster. I'll entertain a motion regarding the rooster.
I'll make a motion to approve this portion, this variance as presented.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Do I have a second?
Like a second.
Thank you, Greg. All right, voting in the affirmative on the code section for the rooster. Brad?
Yes, I am going to vote no on the rooster. I appreciate all that was shared, but for me, I don't feel that a strong enough case was made when looking at the review criteria on our review sheet. And in this instance, I believe that a strict interpretation of the code is appropriate. So for those reasons, I'm voting no.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Okay, Ken?
I'm voting no. I believe that the code has the specific thing about removing roosters from the regular raising of chickens for a reason, and I have heard no compelling evidence, although I know this was not something that the people had intended. They had expected to only have chickens, but once having gotten the rooster, I don't think we can grandfather it in just because of that grandfathering. So I think that's too important a precedent to change, since that rooster provision was just added to the code in about the last year.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Mark?
I'm also going to vote no. I appreciate that it was a kind of an unplanned situation and they've done everything they can to alleviate some of the neighbors' concerns. But the spirit of the zoning requirement is pretty straightforward, and I just don't think there's enough reason to grant any variance, so I'm going to vote no.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Doug?
And I'm agreeing with both Mark and Ken very much so, and this neighbors against the variance and specifically the rooster, I'm going to also vote no.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Greg?
For all the reasons stated before, I vote no. Also, it's rare to see a case with so much opposition from neighbors in the petition. So that's also no reason, as well as I think a difficult precedent that I would set of having roosters in the city limits. So my vote is no.
Okay, thank you, Greg. I think what I'd like to say is to the Yoders, we appreciate very much the circumstance that you find yourselves in. We appreciate your efforts to try to mitigate it. As was noted by my colleagues, we rarely get this significant level of opposition. And I know you've got support on one side, but we also have significant opposition. And noise complaints are tough because they're in the eyes or they're in the ear of the beholder. And so I think then when we look back to why the code was written the way it was, it's very clear on this point that we don't want roosters in the city. So I too am going to vote no. So therefore on this particular portion of your application, your request is denied. So now going to the chicken wire portion of the request, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve this variance request as presented.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Doug, seconds. All right, voting in the affirmative on the chicken wire portion of BZA 20-16. Brad?
I'm going to vote yes on this one. I believe that given the size of the lot where the chickens are located, that the fencing would be suitable. And so I think that for those reasons, I'll vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Ken?
I'm going to vote yes because of the location of the fencing in the rear of the lot. I don't think it's ideal, but I don't think it's not in character with the lot.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Mark?
I'm going to vote no on this. The minimum requirement with the chicken wire is to have the split rail too. And I think that we could just put up some split rail and get the fence in code and it would not set any precedent.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Doug?
I totally agree with Mark, and my concern too is, although it's so well hidden, and I understand that the fencing, it's just that if someone else moves in next door from one side, it sounds like you go in the driveway, you can see it, and or someone decides they want to take down a few very large trees in their yard, it becomes open. And I think the precedent set with it, that I'm going to vote no, and that there is an option to put in a split rail fence that would work there.
Okay, Greg?
I'm also voting no, in particular because the person requesting never explained why they couldn't put up the split rail fence, why they needed a variance. So my vote is no.
Okay, thank you, Greg. I too am also going to vote no on this. The code allows for a variety of fencing alternatives. And fencing is another subject that often between neighbors becomes contentious. And I think in the absence of a compelling argument for why the chicken wire is needed here, I think we have to stick with what the code states. So on this piece also, your request for variance is denied. All right, and I see an indication on the screen that Mr. Helene is on. So this is in regard to BZA 20-12. Clemens Helene requesting a variance for a rooster and an unfenced area. So is there someone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Yes, it's Helga, his wife.
Would you state your address and your affirmation to tell the truth, please?
647 North Western Avenue, Worcester, and I swear to tell the truth.
Okay, thank you very much. Please proceed.
So we are requesting a variance for our pets because they have been able to roam freely for about 2 years. And to our knowledge, there hasn't been an issue. We have, cats as well that roam the neighborhood that are not our cats, and they are on our property as well. So we are looking at our chickens just like anyone would look at their cats as far as being pets.
So to the best of your knowledge, the chickens have never gone off your property?
Oh, no, they've gone off the property for sure. Yes, but at this time, they are mainly sticking to our side of the road and on our property. They've gotten older, they've gotten used to the area. They have a chicken coop that they live in at night, and they're in there from dusk till dawn, if not longer. So we have a wooded area as well as, I don't know if you can tell on this very well, but there's a wooded area. They enjoy going there. They go behind our garage. They like to wander free. They pretty much stick to, I would say, from our house over towards Bowman Street. They generally do not head over towards Woodland Avenue. That's too wide open for them. So they prefer to be in bushes, that sort of thing. We have a deck that they can play under.
And I guess the other question I have is that you say that you've tested or you've taken sound measurements. I guess the question I have on that is that it's not necessarily so much the volume as it is the timing of when roosters make noise, which is at dark 30.
Can you further explain that? I'm sorry, I'm not.
Well, I'm sorry, at the crack of dawn. Isn't that when roosters usually start crowing?
They can, or if you keep them in their coop, if they, are comfortable, they're not going to make a lot of noise. So, and as I said, we don't let them out earlier. They're not out at 7 in the morning. I mean, that's the earliest they would be out, but generally it's when we head to work, or they even stay in longer till we come home at lunchtime. So, but they are in at dawn, when it's dusk, and we're home at that point. They're usually hanging close to us.
So did you give any consideration when you acquired the chickens to fencing an area for them to keep them contained?
I would say, you know what? Our area is really nice without a fence, and I think that was kind of the main reason we have nice wooded areas for them to go to. And to add a fence was not really part of our plan if it wasn't necessary. And since we kind of tested it out and they seem to roam freely and enjoy, where they're going. So we really hadn't considered to keep them caged in if we didn't have to. They're very friendly. They generally stay away from people, and they're entertaining for people that are in the area. So, I think people enjoy seeing them.
Other questions from members of the board? All right, hearing no questions from the board, I'll open the public hearing portion of the meeting and ask if there are any others who wish to speak for or against this application.
And we do have a few comments. I'll try to share the screen here.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
And as Mrs. Helene is on a call and can't see the comments, I think I should read them so she knows what the comments are.
Okay.
Shannon Delaney, 616 West Bowman Street. I'm in favor of the variance. I believe a rooster should be allowed because of the acreage he holds. Neighbor of Clemens, Helene, in favor of the variance to allow the rooster because of his large acreage he owns. Honestly, I enjoy the sound. Eve Kern, 610 Northwest Avenue. We're neighbors of the Helenes. I agree with Sean and affirm to tell the truth. I affirm they do stay on the property. They are used to the area. There's never bothered us with his noise. We have Christine Riffner. I own 575 and 581 Northwestern. I'm opposed to allowing chickens in the neighborhood. Unenclosed chickens present a nuisance to everyone, including safety of children. My property is within 200 feet. Chickens scratch everything in sight. They destroy flower beds, gardens, and more. Roosters are usually mean and attack humans. I have a lot of experience with chickens, and I'm concerned about the safety of everyone nearby and their properties. There's a code in place for a reason. Hens, in addition to roosters, can be quite loud. It can be a beautiful sound in the country, but not in the city. And then Mr. Kern also comments the Helenes have a large plot of land, or the Helenes have a large plot of land that allows for this. That's what I have so far.
All right, we'll give it another minute to see if any other comments come in, given the lag.
Am I still able to comment, or is it now?
Hold on just a second.
Sure, thank
Let's,
you. I've never done this process before.
nope, that's quite all right. We'll let the clock run on the public hearing, and then if you want to add something, you can. Andrew, do you think enough time has elapsed?
Yeah, I'm not receiving any further comments.
All right. Then I will close the public portion of this hearing. Mrs. Helene, would you like to say something further?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Christine Rufner has said here. And I appreciate, she's making a very good observation. They do enjoy scratching. That is their nature, absolutely. But again, on our property, it's not bothering us. And I don't believe they've gone to other neighbors in order to wreak havoc in their flower beds. So I understand what she's saying. We used to have 2 flower pots which they had in the past dug around in last year. This year, they've actually left it alone. So I don't know if it's because they're getting more mature or what's going on, but that's been our experience at this point. Further, we used to have 6 and we are now down to 4. So we don't actually have a concern about a lot of noise because there's not as many, you know, we're down to just 66% of what we started with.
All right, thank you for the additional information. Any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variances as presented.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Ken. All right, voting in the affirmative on BZA 20-12. Brad?
Yes, so I am going to vote no on these variance requests, specifically to the rooster, similar to the last variance request. I just believe that the code is it's very simply put, and that strict adherence to that part of the code should be followed for no roosters within the city limits. With regards to the unenclosed, having unenclosed chickens, it's great that your chickens have their little area that they stick to, that they've gotten comfortable with, and they're not a nuisance. But we've got to think about your chickens and other chickens, and so I think the code is there to set a standard across the board, because not all chickens would be as well behaved as yours or well put as yours. So I feel that keeping them closed in adherence to the zoning code would be good. So those are the reasons I'm going to vote no.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Ken?
I'm voting no on the request to have a rooster. I agree with Brad that the code, which was changed in the last year, is very specific about excluding roosters from the raising of poultry. I think the idea of not fencing and having free range poultry running around reminds me of what if we had free range dogs running throughout the city. We require leashes, we require fencing for other animals. I realize that there are cats that do that, but that's it's not the ideal. And so I just don't see how free range animals like this cannot be a nuisance ultimately to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ken. Greg?
I'm voting no also. Although you have a very nice sized city lot there, it is still in the city, and there are neighbors that are affected by these things, and we have to take that into consideration in setting precedents. And I don't think we want to go set the precedent for roosters or free range animals. So my vote is no.
Thank you, Greg. Doug?
Yes, I'd like to just say I agree with what my associates have said before this. I feel that the fencing is there for a good reason, and a rooster, in my opinion, is just a precedent. We don't want to start having roosters in city limits. I vote no.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Mark?
I'm also going to vote no for the same reasons as many of the board members have said. Mainly just both things are kind of pretty cut and dry in terms of where the zoning code is, and there's not a compelling reason to set a precedent this time.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I too will vote no on this for the reasons cited by my colleagues on the board. There really isn't any unique circumstance here that justifies making an exception and setting a precedent that runs contrary to what is probably the briefest section of our code, which very clearly says no roosters and they have to be enclosed. And I think the other feature is that, well, yes, you have a big lot. You're also right next door to the YMCA and Christmas Run Park. and the potential for something bad to happen is just something we have to take account of. So I think in that case, the code really has to stand. So given all of the arguments, again, I vote no, and your application is denied. Andrew, is there anything further?
I have nothing else.
Okay, I see nothing else on our agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Good motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Again for the
Andrew.
video call or conference.
All right.